the middle of the Chiang Mai countryside up north in Mae Rim, which is about 20 kilometers outside of Chiang Mai, and I'm here to see this car. You may recognize this car, and to be honest, you see this car, if you're a classic car enthusiast in Thailand, you probably know which garage has done this car. But first of all, let me start. I am burning in the heat here. This day is not really going to plan because I am absolutely baking. The sun is insane. But I've been to this strip of concrete a couple of times before to make videos by the same garage that has built this car, B&T Performance Retro, which is not far from here in Mae Rim. I made a video on a Datsun 240Z and a Datsun 510. So now I'm making my video on the third car from this garage, which is also a Datsun, a Sunny KB110. And the reason why I just want to come back to this garage and make videos about their cars is because they're just insane. The level of build that this garage are doing is just absolutely off the scale, and they have got lots of cars and they're doing one-offs. Usually if you're a specialist and you're doing runs of cars, you kind of build up a knowledge base, you iron out all the edges and make something that's great. But this garage just build one-offs, and it's not just Datsuns, which I've been covering. They do European cars, they do other Japanese brands, they do everything really, and each car is just fantastic. For a one-off, I would say these are the best one-offs you're going to find. And really, the level they go to, what they do is they take the car from the period, they restore it exactly to the period, and then they modify it the way it would be done in the period, but with a nod to the current situation, the current years. So it's kind of done really, really well. They modify it so it's a fast street race car, exactly like they used to do, for example, with this car in the 70s in Japan. Street racer, track racer. This is exactly what it is. It's modified to the period, and it's just fantastic. This garage are just off the scale. So already I've made 2 videos of their cars. I just wanted to come back and make more, and this time I wanted to make a video of this car. And I want to start first of all because to talk about all the parts of it, what they've done, the engine, the brakes, the suspension, the interior, that sort of thing. Going to go back to the garage where I'm out the sun. But why I can enjoy this color here, this is another thing I love about their cars. Their cars have individual colors that are mixed specially for them. So you won't find another car with a color like this. You won't find another Sunny like this. And this color is fantastic. It nails the car completely. And with all their cars, it nails their cars. So before you even get close up to their cars and look at them, you're just like, wow, this color works. So clearly they put a lot of thinking into the color that will work on that car, how it works with history. And that's another thing. When they're building cars within 6 months, 1 year, they're not getting consumed by a restoration and a build. Usually you do a one-off like this, maybe it takes you years. You spend hours and hours and weeks researching it, finding suppliers, because again, their suppliers come from all the way around the world. But they're able to build all these cars without the restoration, the build consuming them. That's another thing. So clearly their management of the restoration, their ability to process information, their knowledge base is absolutely huge. That's something that also stands out when you go in a garage and you see all different types of cars, all done to a fantastic standard. This car also, maybe if you're a classic car enthusiast in Thailand, you'll recognize it, because last month it was a Classic Revival. Classic Revival is the biggest classic car event in Thailand now. It's held at Chiang International Circuit in Bodywork. And B&T came down with about 5 or 6 cars, and they kind of dominated the place. And I was thinking the old expression, God is on the side of the big battalions. And I kind of applied here because they just turned up with about 5 or 6 cars. They had their own garage. They dominated the pit lane, and people were like, a lot of people haven't seen their cars before because these garage, these guys are quite low key. They don't invite many people around the garage. They don't show their works too much. So a lot of people hadn't seen these cars and people were just around them all the time. So this car was on track at Chiang International Circuit. So what I'm going to do now is going to go back to the garage. We're a little bit undercover, and then I'm going to try and look through the different parts of this car, what's been done to it. And also I'm just going to say a big thank you for B&T for letting me come to the garage, let me look at these cars, because you just won't find a KB110 like this. You just will not. I am sure of that. This car is just fantastic. The level is top international. Put this in Japan, put this in the United States, you've got a car that absolutely stands out. Put it in Thailand, also you got a car that stands out. And what they've done here, you can see the Tomei here, it's built to Tomei standard. It's got the Tomei aero kit on it, it's got a lot of their performance parts. And Tomei was a Japanese tuner. They started racing at the end of the 1960s. They focused on Datsuns and then Nissan when it changed its name. Huge reputation, huge street cred for building race cars, street racers, performance cars. So this car is completely done in their style, and it really is absolutely Japan street racing scene of the 70s. But this is just a one-off car. You will see nothing like it, and for me it's just an absolute honor, absolute pleasure to spend an hour or two looking around this car, poking around this car, and hopefully I can get it across to you, and hopefully you'll enjoy seeing this car. The A15 engine really is just an absolute work of art, and it's where we're going to have to start talking about this car. It's measured 140 horsepower at the rear wheels, 163 Newton meters. So for a small, light little coupe of the 70s, it's got a real power, a real bite. So this is going to be a real little street racing weapon. So let's kind of talk about the engine. It's got 78mm Kamiari pistons, Kamiari conrods. It's got a high capacity, high flow Kamiari oil pump. It's got a fully ported head with 40 and 33mm valves, Kamiari valve springs, titanium retrainers, aluminium push rods, lightweight cam followers, an Auckland cam that's been particularly built for this car. It's got a Tomei inlet manifold, twin Weber carburetors, Tomei style exhaust header, and a 2-inch specially made bespoke exhaust pipe. It's got a Scorcher distributor, and it's got a Toda lightweight flywheel and a Nissan racing clutch. That's pretty much it. It's also got a bespoke radiator, and you can see some of the details like the tank here, the brake master cylinders, bring it a little bit up to date. It's a very potent, pretty aggressive engine bay for a car this size. The gearbox is from a 310, it's a 5-speed unit, and it's got an AE86 rear end conversion, which is 4.3 to 1. It's also got a TRD limited slip differential in it. So for the power for this car, it's got a pretty cool uprated transmission that's going to handle that. In terms of suspension, let's start at the front, and it's got 36 step BC shocks with adjustable ride height, designed for the AE86, comes with an AE86 spindle. The car also has AE86 wishbones and a bespoke front anti-roll bar that has been custom made for this performance upgrade. It's also got a KE70 rack and pinion steering conversion. If we look at the back, it's got pit road rear adjustable shocks, and it's got TRD leaf springs. It's got a TA22 rear end with a limited slip diff for the AE86 fitted in it. So the suspension is all adjustable, it's custom made, and that is also pretty much a full race suspension. If we look at the wheels and the brakes now, we've got a Japanese alloy wheel here that absolutely fits the period. It's a real street racing feel. It's quite strong, quite aggressive, and you can see in there we've got wheel well calipers and vented discs. So you've got a very full-on corners to the front of this car. And I think what's happened with B&T is they've really worked their way to the braking setup that they want, because like the other JDM cars I've looked at, they're using the Techno Toy Mini Big Brake kit for the AE86, and what they're doing is they're using Wilwood 4-pot calipers and of course ventilated discs. That combination works really well on the front end of this car. The rear end is standard TA22 drum, and if we just look at these wheels, it's 8x14 on the front, and it's got Toyo 195/45/14 tyres. The rear is an inch wider at 9x14. It's got a slightly bigger tyre, again Toyo. This time it's 225/40/14 profile. So what we've got here is we've got stopping power and we've got gripping power to match the other performance upgrades. So really it's a very well thought out, very joined up modified street racer. And again, what I've said all along, it's right in keeping with the period, the way each detail has been modified. So finally, I want to finish with taking a look at the interior, because again, what B&T have done is they've reupholstered it to the original specification materials. The roof lining, these trims down the A-pillar, the dashboard cover, the carpet, it could be straight out of the showroom. It's all absolutely original, absolutely perfect. The door cards have been done to original specification, and things like the winder handles, the door catch, the push for the door locks, they've all been re-chromed, and this trim that goes around here, so it's all been newly re-chromed. So you've got all this originality in here, and things like the badging on the gear shift, the badging here, the Sunny badge there, all done exactly how it was out of the showroom. Then on top of that, B&T have made some modifications that again fit with the period. So you got these really cool looking OMP bucket race seats, which have got this cross stitching, which is kind of very Lamborghini like. They're really snug and you fit in them, and the material has that 70s feel, so you transport it back straight away. There's some other details, the Smith's gauges. B&T seem to use Smith's gauges on most of the builds that I've seen so far, most of the JDM builds, and again, Smith's gauges take you straight back and they fit within the period, and I really like that. It's got some auxiliary gauges for the water temperature and the oil, and it's got an air fuel ratio thing which gives a nod to the performance upgrades you've got under the bonnet here. So I think it fits all really well. You've another detail actually before I finish is this Izumi steering wheel. Izumi steering wheels are really period what people wanted in Japan in the 70s, and so far all the cars I've made videos on have these wheels. They're very hard to find, very sought after now, not just in Japan, but also in Thailand here. So clearly they have the connections, they have the contacts to source these sort of parts to finish the whole project off. So really the interior, it's like new. It's just amazing. I really feel like I'm sitting in a Sunny that's just come out of a showroom in the early 1970s. And it's a nice place to be. It's a nice living room to enjoy this performance and all the dynamic modifications that have been made to this car. So finally, I want to finish with a look at the body. I talked a little bit about this earlier on when I made the intro, up in the countryside in the sunlight, and you could see this amazing blue color. But here I just want to give you a better feel for how it's been done. This whole Tomei body kit replica from the 70s, the front dam, the wheel arch extensions, this rear spoiler, all held on with Allen headed bolts, all chromed. It's absolutely period fast street racing style from Japan. In terms of the shell, as ever with B&T, there's no stone left unturned. They tear the project down, everything has been ripped out, everything that's corroded is gone, it's fabricated as the original, then it's resprayed in Bangkok and it's shipped up here for a rebuild over a period of months. All the details are like the rear lights, the bumper, they're either new reproduction or they've been re-chromed original parts, but the rear lights, all these trims look absolutely new. The whole car feels like it came out of the showroom today. It's been really nicely done outside. The ride height, the stands, the wheels, the tires, everything has been combined to make it work. And hopefully I think you get an idea now after my first two videos on the 510 and the 240, which again, if I mentioned, I've dropped links in the description below. You get a feel for the DNA of this garage, where they're coming from, how they interpret cars. And I think it's worth remembering this garage is not in Bangkok. Never mind being in London or California or Tokyo or somewhere like that. This garage is in Mae Rim. It's absolutely in the middle of nowhere. It's in the north of Thailand. We're right out in the countryside. We're even about 20 kilometers from Chiang Mai, which in itself is a small northern country town, primarily a tourist town. So what they're doing, it would fit in some of these famous shops in Tokyo or London. And I think that's amazing. And I think hopefully over these videos, you've got a feel for these cars and how they're doing these one-off projects. And finally, I just want to say thank you to B&T for letting me come again, make another video, and thank you for their technicians and their staff for helping me out in making these videos, because they've done something really nice, really impressive. And now hopefully you've got a feel for this garage, and then hopefully there are just so many cars in this garage that I don't know where to look first. Hopefully they're going to let me get underfoot again at some point this year and I can make another video about another car project of theirs in 2022.